Hi and welcome to Slick Willy Flying. Today we're going to tie the secret weapon. So this is basically a combination of flies. What this fly is supposed to do is it's supposed to swim just below the surface. I want this for when I'm casting over vegetation, and I want a fly that's going to swim just maybe say 2 or 3 inches below the surface. Every time I stop, it's going to come up, and then when I strip or move the fly in any way, it will dip down. And the way I achieve this is by using a combination of lead, or in this case I use brass dumbbell eyes. The hook is kind of a heavy hook, and then I use a very light foam. I don't use a very thick foam at all. This is a 1mm foam that I've used. So for materials, I'm going to use a couple of these awesome Hackel feathers. I'm actually going to use 4 in the tail. And then, got some materials flying around everywhere. And then I'm going to use, between them, I have this gold tinsel. It's not angel hair. This is actually, it is angel hair, gold. It doesn't really, anyway, we'll say it's angel hair. Then I'm going to use a little bit of yellow bucktail that you could see here. For the body, I'm just going to put it doesn't matter what color chenille. I'm going to put a very, very small chenille on. And then I'm going to wrap it with this Polar Chenille in olive brown, which I think the olive brown color goes really, really well with the yellow bucktail and the black and yellow barred Hackel feather. Of course, the dumbbell eyes that we spoke about. These are medium-sized brass, nickel color with yellow pupils. And then black for the foam. Super simple tie. And again, this can be tied in any color. You can tie it in a variety of sizes. What's important here is that whatever size you figure out, or whatever size you want, you need to figure out the amount of foam that actually works. Because it isn't a gurgler. This isn't for me a top water. This for me is something that I want it to work just below the surface, but so that it goes suspending above the vegetation, so I'm not constantly snagging the vegetation. This is a fly that I can easily use for sea trout or pike fishing. So, that's my world, and, that's how I choose my size, my overall length. So, so let's change the camera angle. Let's have another sip of our cocktail. For me, of course, my Don Q. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and let's tie this fly. Alright, so let's get started. So I didn't talk so much about the hook, I guess. I'm going to use the Mustad 34007 for my hook. And for my thread, I'm just probably going to use, I either have a black 6.0 or it might be a Uni 220 denier. It's a Uni 220 denier that I have ready. And that's a good strong thread, so that's the thread I'm going to use. You saw I put a little super glue on the hook. I love to do that because I hate when my materials spin. So just a little simple thread base here. Nothing fancy. And the first material that we're going to put on, it's going to be a little bit of this angel hair, because I'm going to use, like I said, 4 feathers, and you've seen me tie a whole bunch of flat tails, and I love that. But for this fly, I think I'm going to go knife edge. So this angel hair is kind of long, so I'm just going to put it on the hook, on the thread, I'm sorry, kind of even, as even as I can, and just get it right on top of that hook, just like that. Might be a little bit long, but I'll worry about that after I get my feathers ready. So like I said, I'm going to pluck out a couple of feathers, and I'm going to go ahead and put my feathers on the knife edge application. And what that means, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, is, I'll show you in 1 second here. So you have 2 options. You can either put the feathers on like right on top flat, and in that case I would have put a feather on first and then my angel hair, or in this case, since I'm going for the profile, I want to put them knife edge. And what I like to do is I like to rotate them a little bit under rotated, a couple of loose wraps, and what that does is that pretty much puts them exactly where I want them. So now I've done my side. The angel hair didn't come out too long, it looks pretty good. Now I'm gonna prep a couple more. You notice I'm not getting crazy with the length. Where I'm going, there are some pretty decent sized bait fish. I think that overall size is actually really important. But where I am, there's some pretty big mullet and all kind of different bait that has some size to it, so it works. Again, I'm gonna slightly overdo the angle so that once I put my thread on, it rotates them exactly the way I want them. Makes it pretty easy to apply. Beautiful. Now the next thing I'm gonna do, and you can pretty much do this in whatever order you like. I'm going to go ahead and apply my foam. The foam I've pre-cut into this little, it's not really a triangle because I don't come to an actual point, but you get the idea. And I'm just going to go ahead and place it on the hook, and all I'm trying to do is keep it on the top of the hook. So I'm going to basically go to the point where I would start the bend back. I don't need to think about the bead at all at this phase. The dumbbell eyes. I'm just trying to get this secured nice and hard. Careful you saw I caught my thread on the hook point. You gotta be careful with that. End up cutting your thread off. Alright, so that's done there pretty good. So now I'm going to go for a little bit more angel hair. And the amount of angel hair that you use is definitely up to the tire. Some people like a little bit more, some people like a little bit less. For me, it's very, it has a lot to do with whatever species I'm chasing. I'm going to use this fly on both, most likely both sea trout and pike. And I think that both of those species are okay with a little bit of additional flash. And since this fly is going to ride hook down, I'm going to apply the majority on top. Alright. That one's a little bit longer. You notice I don't cut. I kind of just rake my scissors so that they're not an even length. I'm going to get one wrap under just because I want the tail to kind of ride a little straight. Okay, so now it's a little bit of bucktail. Again, keeping this pretty sparse. I'm just using fluorescent yellow bucktail. I'm taking it from the middle section of the bucktail, not really from the top. I want it to flare some. The farther to the top of the bucktail you go, the less it will flare. Those tend to be straighter hairs and a little less hollow. But I don't want it to go crazy on the flare, but I do want it to flare some. I'm going to trim these because I don't want these to be as long as my feathers. So I'm just going to set this clump right at my tie-in point there at the back, couple loose wraps. Now I'm going to use my fingers to rotate this around, and when I feel good about that, and I do, now I'm going to just go ahead and pinch and lock this in nice and hard. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to cover some, give me a little bit of more volume, pushes a little more water, but I didn't really want it to be overwhelming. So I guess now it's time to go ahead and put my bead on, my dumbbell eyes. These are 5.5 millimeter brass, black nickel. You know, we get a lot of, when I buy in local stores, I get a lot of stuff in millimeters. I would say that this is pretty much the same size as what we call medium back home. These are these are Fly Dressing ink brass eyes. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the way I do all my eyes, and once I like where they are, just kind of lock them in nice and hard. Rotate my fly back. Now I'm going to go ahead and tie on a little bit of chenille. Color here doesn't matter, no one's ever going to see it. Size is up to you. How thick do you want your body? I'm using a very thin tan chenille for this right here. I'm just trying to create a little bit more volume is all I'm trying to do. I don't need to get crazy about getting the super awesome coverage here. But I do try to keep it somewhat neat. And that will work. I can trim this off. Now I am going to start my Polar Chenille. And this one, I am going to try to keep very neat. I'm going to go ahead and start this in front of the eyes, because I'm going to do a few wraps in front of the eyes, and then we're going to bring it back to the back. So I want to capture it nice and hard right in front of the eyes. This foam is getting in my way a little. Now we're going to go ahead and bring my thread back to the tie-in point. The original bucktail tie-in point. And again, I'm going to go ahead and use my rotary function. And what I'm going for now is I'm actually going for, didn't see that had happened, got caught on my hook. I'm actually going for coverage. Well, that's going to be a pain on every single wrap. So I'm just going to take my time and get good coverage all the way up to that tie-in point. And I think you can see that the color just goes perfect. It's a great color, this olive brown. Thread moved up a little bit, so I'm gonna fix that. Alright, so I think that is about where we want it. Lock that down, trim this off. Now I take a second and I kind of just move around my fibers a little bit into the position that I like. Now I can fold this back. Now you can fold this as hard or as soft as you like. I personally like it a little bit flat. So what we're going for here is we're going to have all these fibers that are under, which are going to be much more visible. But at the same time, I want this to have enough foam to ride on top. Now here I'm going to do a knot finish right now. Just trying not to trap too many fibers. I'll give it a second one. This is where people who are able to do a whip finish with their fingers comes in pretty handy here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut off this thread at this point. But for me, this fly is not done. Because I have found that the lead that I'm using, the amount of not lead, I'm sorry, weight that I'm using is too much for this little foam. It will sink too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut off my thread here carefully. And I'm going to restart my thread at the front of the hook. Cut off that tag. Then I'm going to bring this one little layer over again. But before that, I'm going to use a little bit more super glue right on this knot. And try to make that knot a little tougher. Now I'm going to try my best. You're going to capture a little bit of these fibers. It's impossible not to. But I want to minimize how much I capture. And I want to keep the thread wraps as clean as I can over themselves here, because that will make this fly just look better. Now it's a whip finish. I am going to put super glue on this knot, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a second whip finish. Now we can trim off this knot. And now what I like to do is I like to get a good scissor and a sip of my cocktail. And I want to go ahead and trim off this front end. It's not a gurgler for me, so I trim it off pretty close. Just like that. And now again, a little more super glue. But first I'm going to trim a couple of these more wild ones. And this super glue will make it pretty much bulletproof. You can, if you want, if you think some of these are a little bit too long, I like to take a pick before I say anything is too long. I pick out my fibers. I do like to shorten them a little bit around the eyes. Don't want them completely overpowering the eyes. Something like that. Okay, so there it is. I mean, it's a fairly simple fly to tie. It's not a lot going on here. Very few materials. Super effective. Again, I'm going to use this primarily now for pike first, and then I'm going to use this in July in Florida. When I go to Florida, I'm going to be up in the Panhandle, and I'm going to be chasing redfish and those big giant Panhandle sea trout. So hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe. Good luck catching, and we'll see you on the next video.